Hi everybody, we are here for our next interview. I'm here with MarneKaeske. Kaeske. And she works for 1854 Treaty Authority, and their logo is on the back wall here. She's going to explain what they do. And so, Marnie, I know I sort of said this, but could you introduce yourself with your name and your job title and where you work?
Of course. Bonjour, anin ejiaya nungum nijiwag nijinakas Marnie. My name is MarneKaeske. I'm the Cultural Preservation Specialist for the 1854 Treaty Authority. And 1854 is an intertribal natural resource management agency. We work both for the Bois Forte Band of Chippewa as well as the Grand Portage Band of Lake Superior Chippewa. And we are tasked with two things. One, to protect treaty rights, and two, to manage the fish and game in those lands that were ceded to the United States government in the year of 1854. That is all of present-day northeastern Minnesota, what we call the Arrowhead region. And when I'm teaching small fries, I usually have to draw a conclusion and comparisons between other natural resource management organizations to really solidify who we are and what we do. So, for instance, Minnesota DNR, they do a lot of great work, and they maintain trail systems through forests and boat launches so that you and your family can enjoy the outdoors. Mm-hmm. U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, they work for the people of the United States, and their efforts are focused towards protecting plant and animal species that aren't doing so hot, so threatened and endangered species. Whereas 1854, we work for Grand Portage and Bois Forte, and our main goal is to maintain a food source. So subsistence harvest is what treaty rights are based upon.
Okay. So that might, just for more of a definition of subsistence, so food would maybe include wild rice and fishing and game, and I mean, is that sort of the thing we should be thinking of when you say that?
Correct, yeah. Okay. All of the plant and animal species that we share the landscape with here, and that the cultures that we work for have grown to exist with and utilize. Okay. Whether it be a food source or tools and technologies based on their, yeah.
Great, okay, thanks, good.
Mm-hmm.
So could you give us a description of what you do at work? I know you sort of did that, but could you give us a little more of maybe what you do during the day?
Definitely. So my job as Cultural Preservation Specialist and the head of the Education Outreach Division is kind of threefold. First off, I handle our organization communications, which means updating our website and social media. Mm-hmm. I also put out a quarterly newsletter. Secondly, I handle our public outreach. So I work with elementary school classes as well as some of our colleagues at state trainings to describe what treaty rights are and how it might impact their daily work. Thirdly, what I do is coordinate and orchestrate our education program. So I work with our tribal families in promoting traditional and adapted harvest skills. So the recruitment and retention of treaty rights harvest, as well as encouraging youth into pursuing careers in natural resource management, right? Because if we have the rights to harvest these resources, we should have the rights to manage them.
Yeah, as a tribal member. Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, cool. And when you say you go into elementary school classrooms, would that maybe be a teacher contacting you and say, could you come in and teach my kids about something?
Yes, actually, I just promoted our flyer today for classroom presentation.
Hey.
So if anybody out there wants a classroom presentation, it's about a half hour. I can do them for you guys all the time. It's great.
Cool, awesome. All right. So just to give folks a sense of for all of our interviews of how you got here, could you briefly explain to us, as brief as you can, how you came to this position? Like, what did school look like in former jobs and things?
Well, it's both my passion and a lot of luck that got me here.
Okay.
I studied conservation environmental science as well as American Indian Studies as an undergraduate at UW Milwaukee. Where both of those disciplines kind of crossed was treaty rights. I learned that there were some tribal groups in the upper Midwest that maintain their way of life through subsistence harvest, and there are organizations that oversee the exercise of those rights. So I was really jazzed to learn that and how we can manage from a different perspective based on a different value system. I ended up doing a senior thesis on Western Great Lakes treaty rights issues and management.
Okay.
So I know that I am very fortunate that I've secured work in such a unique area of study, you know, a very narrow focus. So many of my classmates who studied biology are now handling like financial books for what, I don't know, like construction companies or something, you know.
Yeah.
So I know I am very fortunate. I was hired by the 1854 Treaty Authority right out of college.
Okay.
I was hired as a fish and wildlife technician, and it was the same year that the gray wolf was delisted from the endangered species list. So I was out with one of our biologists trapping wolves, fixing them with collars, GPS collars, to look at populations and pack sizes and ranges within the Duluth urban-rural interface. It's a project that's still going on today that we have biologists working on yet. Between then and now, I spent 6 years as a natural areas manager and ended up back here at the authority in my new capacity as the director of our education outreach division.
Cool. Okay, thank you. That was great. So could you explain to us, we can kind of combine the next two questions, how you use science and then how you use other fields of whatever to do your job? You know, what sort of skills or fields of information do you use to pull that together?
Exactly. Well, anybody who lives on this earth should know a little bit about conservation, right? We're living amongst finite resources. So teaching of conservation values, it's very much a traditional value or indigenous value. It's right in line with the things that we teach and what else? Well, some of the lessons that I need to translate down to make it understandable to the kiddos that I work with, aquatic invasive species. So I need to have an understanding of how spiny water flea is affecting the food chains in order to bring down the information and describe to kiddos, okay, how is it changing phytoplankton populations, and maybe not utilizing some of those words, but describing what their role is within the inland lake ecosystems, to be able to make up games to reinforce some of those lessons and values in the classrooms. Like I mentioned to Rachel earlier, we have a really fabulous spiny water flea tag game that our kids love. You put on different colored t-shirts and somebody gets to play the spiny water flea and somebody gets to play the sunfish, and you play a game of chase and it's fun.
So in that case, you're using an invasive species, spiny water flea, to explain how a food web or trophic system might change in response to that invasive species. Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
So I'm like used to explaining this to small fries.
Yeah, that's fine.
Might not use some of the terminologies you guys are using, so thank you.
That's okay, yeah. Trying to plug it in, no worries.
Another example that I know is that I need to have a good understanding of phenology.
Could you describe what phenology is? We haven't used that in class yet.
Sure. It's the study of seasonal change, right? So leaf out or ice off or ice on, or when the rice is ripe.
Okay. Things
like those. And or like even frogs calling is a seasonal change, or walleye spawning would be one too.
Okay.
I need to know some of those things because in June I am usually out teaching kids how to fish.
Okay.
So I need to know what the fish are biting on in order to have the right bait for them to actually catch fish.
Okay.
Because nobody wants to go out in the water and not catch any fish.
Yeah. No fun.
Right?
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
3 examples for you.
Okay. Cool. Thank you. And then I'm going to throw a couple of things out there. Let me know if you use them or if you don't. So I'm thinking of like skills that I know employers often want of kind of any employee, and things that come to mind are writing skills, verbal communication skills, budgeting. I don't know if you'd write any grants or if your money comes in otherwise, or computer skills. Like, do any of those interact with your job?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to kind of answer them later on.
Oh,
but
sorry.
Good time to do so. So as the director of the Education Outreach Division, I am in a management role, right? And I will be hiring a seasonal employee this summer.
Okay.
I do have to oversee the budget for our work on an annual basis.
Okay.
Part of which is grant funded, so I do have to write grants.
Yeah.
Technology. Well, as you heard me say before, I do have to maintain a content management system of a website. And I don't really have the best technology skills, so I've had to teach myself a lot of work to understand how it works and to get the communication out to the public and to our constituents about what we have going on. So
sure, okay. So teaching yourself those technology skills.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Good. Anything else that I didn't put in that list that you use? Other skills, or is that kind of wraps it up?
I need to know what kind of jobs are out there in the sciences.
Okay.
I mean, and those jobs change frequently based on technology. But a large part of what I do is, because I mentioned before, recruiting and encouraging youth to pursue careers in fish and game and natural resource management. So I kind of need to know what is available on a regional scale and locally. If I have kids that are coming out of high school and college that are looking for careers,
sure,
or mentoring type situations,
and
things like that.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So,
yeah, and I imagine some of those things you didn't expect when you were in school.
Exactly.
These are things you had to learn. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Gotcha. So a question I've been asking is that this course, or this sort of the university studies requirement that this course meets, is environmental science. So everyone has to take that. So I'm wondering why you think, it's important. You've kind of already said this. Why do you think it's important for citizens of the world, in this case our UWS students, as part of those citizens, why is it important for them to understand environmental science? Why is it important from your perspective for people to know that?
These are all shared resources. They really are. And energy isn't free. As I mentioned before, Earth services are finite. And what I have noticed, not only as a teacher, but and an employee and a citizen, but everybody's impact as a consumer really plays a part into the market. Whether that is like going out and getting your fishing license and fishing and your creel counts, or if it's buying carrots at the grocery store. Everybody's got to know where that stuff comes from and where it goes to. Once you put stuff in the trash, it's not gone. It's not done. You have to know where it goes to in the landfill, and that's kind of personal stuff. But I'm sure that you'll have other folks talk about this in these interviews too.
Some of them, yeah, those are coming up.
Can I talk a little bit more about kind of what my role is in terms of my job? Like what's most closely related to what I do?
Yes.
Okay.
Go.
So, when I go to the dentist and people are asking me, like, what is your occupation? There's not necessarily a box that I can check that says, cultural preservation specialist, right? So when I have to describe what I do, obviously it depends on who's asking me. I teach kids how to hunt and fish, those basic skills. But what my job is most closely related to is probably what a state park naturalist does. So I work in the field of environmental education and interpretation. Although I'm an environmental educator, I do not have the background in education. So everything I had to learn about education, about teaching, is very organic. It's been learning on the job. And I am in awe of some of the folks that I work with that do have that training, because they're a lot faster than I am at creating lesson plans and following lesson plans. But with that, a good scientist is one who's able to explain their work well, because they can receive grant money and they can also get supporters on the bandwagon. It's my job to interpret 1854's management programs. For example, we have a moose foraging project, which I know you have a little bit of background in. Our project assesses moose utilization of habitat, which changes seasonally, and it's also based on availability and whether those sites are natural or human modified. It's my job to describe and summarize these projects for our website, for our newsletter articles, and if our biologists are short-handed someday, like I'll need to go and help them in the field, which happens quite often. I kind of have to know a little bit about the projects. So, my job is also very diverse. One day I can be publicly speaking to a group of tribal state relations training folks, and the next day I'm taking kids fishing. And because 1854 functions under such a unique governmental situation, I have a lot of vocabulary I needed to learn and use.
Okay.
As mentioned, like, who we are, what we do, depends on who you're talking to.
Yeah.
If it's, I just teach kids how to hunt and fish. Or if I'm talking to tribal lands lawyers that understand legal law, lands law issues, and I can say, okay, we're a public law 638 contractor. They get that.
Okay.
We have a small staff, only about 16 people.
Okay.
And that's throughout 4 different divisions: administration, conservation enforcement, resource management, which is a biology wing, and then education outreach.
Okay.
Opposed to Minnesota DNR has tens of thousands of people.
Yeah, a lot.
So we do have to overlap and help each other out, and we have a very diverse set of skills that have to be employed on a daily basis.
Yeah, absolutely.
Most importantly, about interdisciplinary skills, I want to mention that someone in my position needs to have the sensitivity to aspects of Anishinaabe culture in order to be the conduit to pass down some of these traditions. So if I necessarily don't have the skills to teach trapping of fur bears, and I know a little bit about trapping wolves, but not necessarily about like procuring furs and tanning them, I do need to find the people that can share that information.
Okay.
And depending on their level of traditional, how traditional a person they might be, I might have to approach them with tobacco and ask them for their help, or give them gifts. And securing those relationships, it's time intensive. It takes a long time to do so.
So definitely a cultural aspect is incredibly useful and important. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense?
Totally.
Yeah. We got to work together to do it. Absolutely. Great. And so, but people, just a quick follow-up question. Somebody who's thinking about an education major, or it gets one, could theoretically work sort of in this field of environmental education through a nature center, or in this case, the Treaty Authority. That would be a possibility, too, to come from that background, right? Yeah.
Or interpretation, I don't know, did I mention like museum curators or aquarium curators? Something like that. That's where scientists might get a job where they're doing a little more of educating than they would be of like actually research or policy.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks, Marnie.
Thank you.
This was great. Yeah.
Good luck, you guys.
You can do it. Have a good day.